Give it up for Mr. Joe Ciurca. He's going to teach y'all how to cross-train. This and your PR talk are the two single most important talks. Now, are you recording on your computer back there, or are we recording on this? All right, cool. Did you hit record to computer?
Oh.
Yeah. Perfect. All right, so Joe's going to rip it. So he's going to teach you, and then he's going to do his intro talk, right? You should have all, as everyone, watched my intro talk and have your bullet-pointed script for it for your drill for skill.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, beautiful. All right, cool. So Joe's about to rip it. Let's give that man another round of applause. Okay, bam, rip that thing. All right, DMs, we're going to be in the interview room.
First thing I'm going to...
Give me the wrong one. Give me this part.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to tell you guys right here is you're about to be learning a lot of different types of talks to give, right? There's an intro talk, right? And then, I mean, there's going to be a
there's like a huge meeting in Orlando right now.
Right,
there's
like, talk.
Since I'm here,
The first thing that I do want to say is while you guys are learning all these different kinds of talks, the most important thing you need to learn to ask is what is the purpose of each talk when you go into it. And any talk you do in training, before you go into it, you need to think to yourself, what is the purpose of what I'm doing and what am I trying to accomplish? And the reason I say that is because it's very easy to get caught up in the scripting, right? What you're supposed to do, right? Be word for word. I'm not telling you not to be word for word. But don't be so worried in training about saying the exact word for word on the script that you don't achieve the whole purpose of doing the talk in the first place. A couple parts of this will be discussion based. I'm going to break down the intro talk. I'm going to do a couple things that I do, but I am going to do a couple discussion based things based on what you guys saw from the intro talk. So let me ask you guys this, because I'm going to go ahead and guess most of you guys know the answer. What is the purpose of the intro talk? Now, when I say intro talk, that encompasses everything from when you start training up to when you teach the demo. So it's not like just a personal story. It's like everything you say until you start the demo. And we're just going to hit on the objectives, right? So expectations is one, right? Write that down.
This is the purpose you're talking about, right?
Yeah. What are we trying to accomplish? So these are the things you need to think about before you go into the intro talk, like what's my objective, right? Ooh, fear bubbles, that's the next one.
Building credibility.
Just credibility, yep. So fear bubbles, credibility, expectations, and then what else? There's one more. Set the tone for training in the job, right? So setting the tone for training. So let me go ahead and elaborate a little bit on each one. Now, you gotta put yourself in their shoes, kind of remember when you were in training, right, and you were walking in for the first time. Now, for me, I was never skeptical about the job when I was in training because I had a friend here, and, this guy was killing it, right? He already sold a few grand. He made a couple $100s. So I never worried once about it being a scam after I was, here, right? I was gung-ho about the job when I was in training. But I do put myself in the shoes of people who weren't, right? I put myself in the shoes of kids who applied because they saw a letter in the mail or they saw us on Craigslist or something, right? So you do have to put yourself in their shoes and think, what are all the things they're thinking about, right? So one is get them excited, right? So somebody said that, right? Get them excited. The job's different, but I want to change their mentality. Even though the job's different, that's a good thing. Credibility. Just out of curiosity, raise your hand if before you came to training there was at least one person that told you it was a scam. Or Google if it wasn't a person. Okay, so half the training class is going to worry about that. They're like, I really trust my manager, but I don't know why my friend says it's a scam, right? So they need to kind of understand why people say that and then understand why we're credible and we're not. Fear bubbles, right? What are things they're afraid of when they're in training? What are things any kid would be afraid of in training?
Embarrassment.
Okay.
Making phone calls.
Or I don't have a sales personality. Or am I going to bother my family and friends? Or is this a waste of time? Is it weird that training's not paid, right? Those are all the concerns, right? So you want to pop each one throughout the day. And then as far as expectations go, the thing I want to say on this, you guys have probably learned so far that when you run an interview, if you don't set proper expectations, they come to training and then they drop off and they don't come back the second day, right? I could have 100% show to training. I could just tell all the kids, hey, we give you numbers and we pay hourly, and everybody would show up. But then nobody would launch. Well, the same thing happens from what you say in day one to your rep retention. So expectation needs to meet reality. So you could do an intro talk where they don't expect certain things about the job, and then they see reality is different than what they expected, and that's what could cause some kids to like quit first weekend too, right? Not even just with launch, but like how much they'll sell this weekend because of what they expect from the job. So I'm gonna go ahead and dive in. You guys noticed in Trey's intro talk, what's he do at the very beginning of his intro? Oh, mix it. Okay. What else? Right after that, he plays a video. Now, if you guys are in Orlando, right, you guys see him always play the video. If you're in any other office, nobody else plays the video, right? If you guys notice, right? Patrick doesn't, I don't, Brent doesn't. You guys should play the video, just so you guys know. Why do you think you want to play the video?
It builds more credibility.
So, yeah, they need to see it. They need to see it. You might, watch my training. I just go in and I don't play a video, and Brent just goes in and he doesn't play a video. Realistically, what happened is like I just didn't have the video. I couldn't get to load, so I just did it without it, and then I just didn't do it since then, right? But we're pretty experienced where we know what we're doing without the video, and you're not. Also, keep in mind, y'all look like you're 18 and 19 years old, right? You look your age a little bit. So like this 18-year-old looking kid interviewed me. This 18-year-old looking kid's training me. They need to see that the company's big, right? There are a lot of people that work here, and it's a real thing. They need to see it's a real job, right? Now I get it. I look 18 myself, but I've run a lot of training, so I know what I'm doing without the video, right? You guys aren't quite there yet. And it's really good to give yourself time to get your thoughts together. And I used to love that, right, when I was playing the video. And I used to love that time where I had to get my thoughts together, because sometimes your mind's not in the game at the start of the day. You might be really annoyed about something completely non-training related, which could be like your top kid just tried to quit, right? Or something happened that really annoyed you, or you had a crappy show to training, or you're a 10K fast starter, right? The one you thought would be a 10K fast starter didn't even come to training. And it's really nice to take 10 minutes, right, to just get yourself ready to train, get yourself ready to rip it so you could go in and bring your A+ game. So just know if you have managers that don't play the video, you really want to play the video. Now, what does Trey do after the video is done playing?
Takeaways.
Okay, what's he ask? How's he ask for takeaways? Yeah. And why do you think I played that video for you guys? And they'll say things like, oh, flexibility stuck out to me, the income stuck out to me, right? Hit on all the things. I'm not going to repeat, Trey's intro talk, right? I'll hit on the things. Yeah, flexible. Yeah, you could grow a lot. Yeah, you could boost your income. Then the main thing I'll point out, I'm like, okay, well, guys, credibility versus non-credibility is a big reason. So I just go ahead and Trey does something similar to this, but I just go ahead and say after that, I'm like, yeah, when I first actually got recommended to the job, I had some friends say it was a scam, and I actually canceled my interview. And it wasn't until I had another friend recommend me later that I was like, okay, I think this is real, right? Because my friend talked to me a little bit about it. And that's important for all and I use a scam word, like the S word some people are afraid to say in training, because that is what's on their heads. And then you flip through the Wall Street packet with them, and I just nail in here's why why we're credible and why we're not a scam is essentially the vibe they're getting, and they understand why their friends aren't credible. So Trey talks, CNBC, 21% of college graduates get a job within 6 months of graduating. They need to see that they need us in order to get the type of job that they want out of college. They need to have the feeling they need us, and I'd write that down. The kids need to have the feeling that they need this job for life success. Because not everybody we're training necessarily needs the money. Or even if they do need the money, they might think I could do something that's easier. But I dig in on that, right? And, I use personal stories. So I say, hey, when I went to college, I had friends who graduated with really good GPAs, like 3.5s, 3.8s. And I always joke, I'm like, now, if you're a pre-med kid, right, you might think that's awful. But if you're an engineer, that's freaking ridiculous. And they had trouble getting jobs. They struggled because they didn't have any type of job experience. Nowadays, right, getting a bachelor's degree is like getting a high school diploma was decades ago. And maybe you might have the mom that says, oh, don't work a job while you're in college. Well, you know why mom's telling you not to work in college, right? Because when she went to college, you could not work, but you'd get a job. And today doesn't work like that nowadays, right? Today, most college graduates, even with great GPAs, don't get jobs. Even medical schools are getting competitive to get in. So you can have a 4.0 and you'll still get denied to some of the grad schools you want to go to. Now, obviously, you always want to be conscious. So when I say that, which kid do you think I'm looking at?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the one that I know wants to go to medical school, right? Obviously. So just be conscious with that. All right, and then boom, flip through the Shark Kit packet. So when you go through the Shark Kit packet, again, you want to make intentional eye contact with everything, but you also want to know what point you want to hit on each page. Now raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. Your office has a Shark Kit packet or a Wall Street packet. Palm Beach and Brevard, you guys don't have any type of packet at the beginning of the day?
They're
All right.
like one.
Here, can you pass that up here? I'll pass it right back. Well,
We used to hand them out to sharp kids during the interview.
it might be worth it to give them this packet. So I lay one out for all of them, right? Now, what I do in my office is we give them to any kid that's decent because this is only like 10 cents. Now, we only used to give it to really sharp kids because there's a blue folder in there, right? That like, made like another 50 cents per one, right? Which is just a lot. Adds up to a lot, but if it's just a packet, we could give it to a lot of kids. But we'll flip through this at the beginning because this is the credibility they need, right? So I'll hit on the Wall Street Journal. And then with the Wall Street Journal, I'll talk about, they write about how much students gain here because there's things you can't learn in a classroom, right? And I emphasize that. There's certain things you can't learn in a classroom and you won't learn until you do it. Boom, the vice president of ESPN, she sold Cutco in college. I talk about, her dad thought it was a waste of time at first until he got on her side. Now, that sticks out to me, guys, because, my parents, was pretty anti-Cutco when I was in training. And it wasn't until I actually did an appointment that they were on my side. Okay, what do you guys say? Why do you guys think I just said that? Because, again, popping fear bubbles, right? So I'm thinking the whole time throughout my intro talk, what could be any possible concern under the sun that any of them have, right? There's going to be a percentage of kids whose parents were saying, don't do this job, right? And they're saying this job's a waste of your time. So I'm going to say that. Like, my parents said it too. So did the vice president of ESPN's parents, right? This one, the CEO of Uber sold Cutco in college. Daniel Tosh sold Cutco in college, right? You hear a little bit about both of these here. Now, normally it's not all highlighted, so I'm saying how it is. And you can look through this and you'll know what goes on each one, right? This one's a really big one, right? So law school one. So obviously I'm gonna look at, and if it's not like I don't have a kid that wants to go to law school, I'll also look at the med school kid or any kid that does want to do grad school or like be a psychologist, right? You can tell from the papers. And I'll say, Michelle Abrada, she was a good friend of mine in college. The dean of the law school emailed her when she was accepted. He said, I was impressed with your work history. The skills and work ethic you learn will serve you well. Well, guys, what was the only thing on her work history? Cutco. We were the only thing on her work history. She did it for 3 years, right? Cutco through college. That's what, we call it when people work here for a few years. But because of that, she got accepted to her #1 law school. Now you see how I'm planting like slight seeds throughout it, right? Cutco through college isn't a big part of your intro talk. That's going to get them to launch. But doing little things like that does get them thinking in the mentality like, okay, a few years, if you get accepted to law school, we want. And I'm not going to go through this with all of you guys because obviously that's not the purpose of my talk. Let's see. What do I want to highlight? Again, this guy was an engineer, so if I have an engineer in training, I'll spend more time on this if he's my sharpest kid. This was the one I always read. Johnson & Johnson, when I see Vector on a resume, it's a guaranteed interview. Motorola, we made him choose one of our best offers ever. And then, so y'all get the point, and then I hit Deco, which is the last one there, and you can pass that back to Daniela. And then right after that, the verbiage that I always use, and Trey probably uses the same thing, I believe in his video. I'm like, guys, when I was in training and I saw that, I'm like, okay, whose opinion matters more to me? Wall Street Journal and the Better Business Bureau or 18-year-old kids who live with their parents? And then when I did appointments and I saw people, right, who are pretty successful, they lived in really affluent, areas in Orlando and successful business owners, tell me how much this was helping me above the person with the cookie cutter like resume, right? That's what mattered more to me. I care way more about what they say than 20-year-old kids who mommy pays all their bills. Right? And I say that in a joking way, like, I laugh when I say it. And they'll laugh too, but they get it because they're like, oh, yeah, screw my friend. I don't care what my friend thinks. Is the kind of mentality I want them to have on that. So credibility, I think that's a really, really big thing that will affect your show to training is I just rip off the scam Band-Aid and the credibility Band-Aid right at the beginning of the day. And I explain why your friend said it's a scam, but I also explain, hey, when you hear information, you got to ask, is this source credible or is this not credible, right? Wall Street Journal, New York Law School, right? DECA, Johnson & Johnson, those are credible. 19-year-old kids who haven't worked anywhere besides fast food and mom pays all their bills, not very credible, right? I say that in a laughing way with them. Okay, now the next thing Trey does is his intro story. I'm going to spend a lot more time on my talk about my intro story than how to do an intro story compared to other things. Let me ask you guys this. What stood out from Trey's intro story? His personal story, I should say. Now, personal story is the part of the talk where you just talk about how you heard about the job and then came to where you are now. It's like your whole Vector life story. What stuck out to y'all about Trey's? Okay. So the point you're making with that is that relatable, right? He's a normal person. They can relate to him. Okay, and what else? They look up to you, right? Now, you don't have to be like, I'm naturally a badass, right? But they have to know you're a badass, even if it's like, oh, I wasn't before, but Vector made me a badass, right? So they have to look up to you, right? But they also have to relate to you, and they have to trust you, right? You go from being this boss that, they're still trying to feel out to all of a sudden they trust you more and they like you more. Now, everyone's personal story is different. This is the one thing in training you can't like exactly script out because you have to make your own. I'm going to go ahead and do my personal story with y'all the way I do with training. And I'm going to pause a couple times along the way to point out things that should stick out to you guys about the personal story. So again, before I go into it, popping fear bubbles, and just think, and I want you guys to be conscious while I'm doing my personal story, why is Joe saying this particular thing? Because everything you say with your personal story is there for a reason, right? So you're not to fluff anything up. All right, so I start out and say, all right, my first job, guys, I worked at McDonald's when I was 17. That was my first official taxable job. Now, I did some other under-the-table stuff, right? I tutored kids when I was 15 and 16. I did some piano accompaniments too, so I made a little money. I wasn't making a whole lot with that. Like, my first official job with taxes was McDonald's. And what's really funny is when you get your first job, you don't care, like, what it is. You're just excited to get a job in high school, right? I hear kids that are excited to interview at Domino's. And when I got the job, I was actually excited my first couple times going there. I mean, granted, I was making big backs and stuff like that, but I was happy to just have a job. And then after working there a couple days, I started to realize how much everyone else there hated their life. I'd show up and be in a good mood, and no one else wanted to be there. It just sapped the energy out of me, and I hated it. Anyways, so at the beginning of the summer, I heard about the job, right? And it sounded kind of cool, but I heard it was a scam, so I decided to go ahead and cancel my interview. So I sold Big Macs and not knives that summer. And then at the end of the summer, I got referred again by somebody. And I remember like booking the interview, or, it was on a phone call. You guys might have been texted, right? Nowadays, everyone texts. But anyways, it was a phone call. And I remember getting off the phone thinking to myself, I think that's like the knife thing I heard about earlier. And again, I had some other friends that were like, oh, dude, it's a scam. You shouldn't do that. And I talked to the guy who recommended me. And I trusted the guy too, right? He was making money here. So I decided, okay, well, maybe this is a sign. So I went ahead and came to the interview. I'm going to pause right there. What types of objectives do you think like I accomplished there? What types of fear bubbles do you think I popped? Like what do you think was the purpose behind some of that?
Saying the job was a scam, and like you canceled the first interview, just adds like a more personal story. Like that might have been them.
I was you too. Once upon a time, I was in the same shoes as you, right? I didn't all of a sudden decide one day I'll open up an office and like just sell random knives. Like I was also a rep like you were. Very good point. What else?
Saying how other jobs are negative compared to here.
All right, so I'm going to bash other jobs too, right? So we want to lightly bash other jobs. So I'm not going to be like, oh, yeah. Anyways, I'm not going to like brag about how awesome the job was before, but I am going to bash how much it sucks. But also the fact that one is that I did McDonald's too, right? So I did do the crappy jobs. Now, don't lie if you never did, but if you did, it's good to say, for relatability purposes. Also, it's okay to brag a little bit on yourself if you do it in the right way. So this isn't really bragging, but I'm just showing, hey, I can relate to like some of the sharper kids, right? When I'm like, yeah, I tutored, I did like piano accompaniment for money because no one would hire a 16-year-old. But I say some of those things, and I look at the kids that I know are probably all about like the extracurricular type stuff. So anything that shows like, so that way those kind of kids could think, oh, I could probably relate to this boss. You know what I mean? All right, so, okay, go to training. No, the interview. Guys, I didn't even know it was a group interview really until I showed up. And this part's really similar to Trace, right? I'm like, I don't remember everything I said in it. It was 6 years ago, but I said the right things and I got the job. And then later that week I was in training. Now, by the way, if you are in training, you guys should feel really good about it. The way the business works is I spend a lot of money to get a lot of people to apply for the job. I'll spend thousands of dollars. I'll take in, anywhere from 200 to 300 applications on a given week. Out of that, we'll interview maybe half of them, right? It'll work out for maybe a third of them, right? So if you are here, that's good for you. So I now again, why am I going to say that? What's another concern they might? What's another concern, I guess is the right word. What's a concern they could have?
Everybody gets the job.
Yeah.
All right, and I say that because everyone's going to hear all different types of things, whether it's, oh, you buy your kid, or, oh, everyone gets the job, or, oh, this. And the way it works when a kid convinces themselves is they hear some truth, right, where it's like, oh, yeah, you were in a group interview. I was in a group interview too. Oh, and then they scammed you. Okay, they'll scam me too. Does that make sense? So the way like these kids get like, they might think it's like a scam or something is they'll hear some truth and then some not truth. So anyway, so one of those things they might hear is, oh, they hire everybody, and then they'll be like, oh, this kid was in my interview too. But I say now, and I mean, it's true. Only half the kids that apply will actually get the job, right? We shouldn't accept everybody, and if you accept everyone in your office, well, I don't think any office does. But it's not going to work out for everybody except. So I mean, it's all true. I'm like, obviously it's only going to work out for like a third of the room. And they hear 200 applications compared to the 10 people in training, whatever. So I'll move on. And again, relatability throughout training. So yeah, when I was in training, I had a couple different thoughts flowing through my head. One is that I only wanted a really part-time job, right? Because I was starting in the middle classes. I didn't want to do something super time-consuming. But I did want to work hard my first week because my manager kept saying over and over, do 10 demos your first weekend, work hard your first week, and, do that, and that's a big key to success. So I was like, okay, I only want to work really part-time, but I will work full-time my first week. That was one of the best decisions I made as a new rep because when I did that, I doubled my pay and went up to 20%, and I got so much more confident with it. One of the best pieces of advice I could give you guys too. Another thing I heard over and over throughout training was read the manual, read the manual, read the manual, read the manual. Guess what the one thing I didn't do on my first appointment was? Read the manual. My first appointment was with my older brother who was 26. So I extra messed up because he wasn't under 30. Now again, I'm saying extra things like this to kind of remind him we see people over what age? 30, right? All right, 7 thoughts, a little bit less. But anyway, so my first appointment I did with my older brother, Grant, who was 26. So I extra didn't listen. Anyways, I didn't read the manual because I thought I was so smart and I was a little too cocky. And I thought I'm going to do so well without the manual, right? I'm just going to do so well and rip it and sell a bunch of sets and be the top person in the training class. Obviously looking at, my kid who's a very confident kid. And my appointment, guys, took 3 hours. How long should an appointment take? Mine took 3. I butchered it. I didn't sound like I knew anything I was talking about. But you know what? Sold a spatula. And you don't care if your first sale is an ultimate or a spatula, you're happy you made a sale. So I was thinking the right way. What message do you think I would have picked up? Read the manual and your life will be easier. Do you know what message I picked up instead? Wow, I'm awesome without the manual. I don't need it. And then my next appointment, so I did a friend's mom. Now I was feeling pretty good. I'll sell my first set on this one. Fishing knife. So I was like, okay, so I'm 2 for 2, but I'm like, no one wants to buy freaking kitchen knives from me. We sell kitchen knives, and no one's buying a freaking knife or a knife set. But then I remember my third appointment was my best one. My manager said in training, you want to see your best people first, right? My best person I could not get first, but I got her third. I had this friend in high school named Angel Velez. Richest family I knew. Her parents were NASA engineers. She didn't live in Titusville. You drive 30 minutes up this road, take a dirt road, then you'll see the gated property, you'll see the house. To put this in perspective, the car I drove at the time was worth a little less than $1,000. It was $900 that we found a good deal on. Angel's mom had a sewing machine that was $15,000. So I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, this lady's sewing machine is worth more than 15 of my cars. She'll buy everything from me 10 times. And you know what? The lady liked me too. So I felt good about it. And guess what happened? Zilch. First no sale. I called my boss right after that. So his name was Michael Slocum, but he goes by his last name Slocum. And I feel bummed out. And by the way, guys, you're going to call me too after all your appointments, right? I'm going to be training wheels. So I call him, and he could tell I bummed out. So he just asked me, he's like, Joe, how many appointments have you done? 3. How many people bought? 2. Joe, 2 out of 3. What percent is that? 67. I was like, okay, I guess that's above average. Guys, you remember what average is? 60%. But I'm like, Slocum, no one wants to actually buy knife sets from you. And he asked me a question, and I'm an honest person, so I answered honestly. He's like, are you reading the manual? I was like, honestly, I'm not. And he made me promise, no matter what I do on my next appointment, I read the manual word for word. Well, I did not know what I was getting myself into. My next appointment was the most intimidating one I had done at the time. So my mom at the time was a cashier at Dollar General, and I ended up booking her boss, who was the GM of the Dollar General. So I go to the house, and him and his wife are talking, and the wife leaves the room for me to do it with the husband. Now, do you guys think you all want to do it with just the husband? No. Right, you want both husband and wife to be there?
Yeah.
Worst case, if you only pick one, at least the wife. But I wasn't confident enough to be like, oh, Miss Jones, come back in here. So I went ahead and just did it. So we stood up on either side of this kitchen island, reading the manual. Now, guys, just so you know, this really tall guy, really built guy, tattoo sleeves like fully on both arms, arms crossed, serious face, never moved. Over and over, right? Like I would say something, he's like, okay, that's cool. I'm still not buying anything. Oh, that's fine, right? I get paid to practice. So I take out the knife and I take out, take out a grate. Now, who do you think cuts the food, guys? You or Miss Jones? Miss Jones, right? You have the customer cut. So I remember saying like, hey, see how many slices you could get? You can do it. Okay, Ray. And I did it. Again, I'm still not buying anything. Oh, that's fine. I get paid just to practice. Now, guys, what do you think I wanted to do on the inside the whole time? I wanted to be like, hey, thank you, Ray, and leave. But I thought to myself, what would be more painful? Having to call my boss and say I still didn't read the manual word for word, because I wasn't going to lie to him, right? I was like, I have to tell him I didn't do it, or just tough it out for 20 more minutes. I chose to tough it out. I go to the very end. The manual has a line in there. It says, I wouldn't be doing my job if I asked, would you like to get this set? Now, guys, this set, we nicknamed it the touchdown. It's a set you want to sell. His response, still arms crossed, he's like, I'll get it. And that's a question I like, you never want to ask. I was like, you actually do want to buy? Never ask that when they want to buy, right? But he was like, yeah, it's a good product. Got my first touchdown. So I went on to hit my first pay raise that weekend. Okay, I'm going to pause right here in my intro talk, or my personal story. What have you guys picked up so far? Because I talked about my first weekend, and you guys want to actually structure out the personal story. So the first part is how I heard about the job. I don't want you guys spending time to write what is for you. Like, I don't want you to do that because I want you to pay attention. But you should bullet how you heard about the job, and you should bullet training and first weekend. You should all talk about your first weekend. So I'm going to pause. Right after I talk about my first weekend, what have you guys picked up so far?
You're setting the expectations of what they should be doing. HM3s, the why, who you should see.
Well, if you can throw little nuggets in there throughout your intro talk and personal stories where I'm like, yeah, over 30. Yeah, you read the manual, right? Yeah, you should see that. I mean, no one ever taught them don't do husbands by themselves, right? But when you say little things like that throughout it, you'd be surprised what some kids pick up on, and they extra make sure they don't do husbands by themselves. Even little things. I'll go with Thomas and Skylar.
Talking on your levels, like whether you're going to sell or not.
Okay. Exactly, right? And, I go through emotions they might have where I'm like, yeah, I felt really confident I would do well, right? Again, when I say I'm targeting a kid who I know is normally that type of overachiever. But I also talk about what I didn't do so well, right? So that way they're like, it's okay if I don't do well. So they don't freak out if they don't do well. What were you going to say, Skylar?
I was going to say, like, you talk about how you kind of like face your first weekend, you're like, oh, well, I suck. Like, if they go through their first weekend and they think they're horrible, they're not going to do it. So, like, everybody else is doing it.
And it's all about establishing the right habits. I said, guys, I called my manager. What you're going to call me, on your first weekend after every appointment you do, right? And I also threw in there twice, like, yeah, he asked me a question. I'm an honest person. I answered honestly. When I left, I would have had to tell him I didn't read the manual, right? Like, I emphasize all that. So what I'm, like, subliminally saying is, like, you don't freaking lie to me. Tell me if you don't read the manual. It's, like, what I'm really saying right there. But the manual works. All right, and then and I let them know too, it's like, hey, we all have that one person that's like really rich that they think will buy a lot. Mine bought nothing from me, and it's like, it's okay, right? And it's like, you don't, it's not like only super rich people that would buy. You can never prejudge. Like, those are the types of things. Now, your first weekend story, say what is your first weekend. So everyone's will be different, right? Because mine was different than Trey's, yes or no? Yeah. Now, were there a lot of similarities? Were there some things like word for word that were pretty much the same? Yeah, that's okay. As long as it's true, right? So just think back to your first weekend. What did you do well? And highlight, like, I'm so happy I did this, right? If you're like, I'm so happy I read the manual because my first appointment was a touchdown and it was easier than I thought. Highlight the things you didn't do well so that way they can learn from it. Does that make sense? It's going to be different for everybody, but just be sincere. Be like, hey, I did this right. I'm happy I did. This didn't go right. All right, I learned this from it. So I went on to, I worked very part-time and became an assistant manager that summer. I didn't quite make the cut to be an AM in the Orlando office, right? It was the #1 office last year, so they had pretty high standards. So I didn't quite make their cut, but I made the cut if I wanted to move to St. Augustine that summer. Now, one of the managers in the office, Locum, I liked the guy who was running an office there. I figured it'd be cool to go there, so I did. Now, guys, I never wanted to do this as a career. I didn't even want to do this throughout college. My thought process and training was I was going to work here for a semester or two and make extra money, and that was it. If you told me in training I'd work here all 5 years I was in college, I would say you're crazy. If you then told me I'd make a career here after college, I'd look at you like you had 3 heads. So what ended up happening after semesters, I thought to myself, okay, the assistant managers love their job. This place is fun. advancement looks good, right? It's like I want to show advancement on a resume. So I didn't want to work here for 5 years, but like I wanted to show I was advancing. And I'm like, okay, it'll be cool to go to St. Aug for a summer. What happened that summer is I decided I wanted to do something called branch, which just so you guys get caught up on the lingo here, a district's a year-round office like this one. A branch is a 3-month office. I wouldn't really go off on that for y'all if you're branching. So I'll skip that part. But I basically tell them I worked hard and I earned my territory to go to Lakeland. Now, what ended up happening that summer in Lakeland was a couple things. One is I finally made a name for myself in the company with other people. I was the number one new branch in my division. And I didn't think I wanted to do this as a career, but I knew that I wanted to be a business owner, right? I just love the challenge. I love the autonomy. I love the chance to be like a mentor for people. I love the chance to like try to maximize a profit and, plan out all these expenses. I loved everything about it. I didn't really have a lot of clear direction on what I wanted to do, right? Part of me was like, did I max out what I could here? I got offered a job I couldn't refuse. I got offered the chance to be the right-hand manager in Orlando. It would have been very unintelligent for me to put that down because, it paid me better, offered flexibility. And, it was with a company I knew I loved. It was with people I knew I loved. And, I would have been dumb to turn it down, so I did. What ended up happening over the next few years is I fell in love more with what I did, having the opportunity to mentor people on a higher level, right, even coach the other branches, analyze the business. We ended up being the number 2 office in 2015 for the year, and then 2016 we were the number 1 office in the nation. Then I had to make a lot of big decisions over the past year and a half of my life. Do I want to pursue engineering? Like I spent a ridiculous amount of time and money studying, or do I want to pursue something with this? I didn't even think I was going to make a career here until my boss Trey talked to me a little bit about it. I made a pros and cons list, which is a big piece of advice I tell anybody when you have to make big decisions in life. And I came to, a couple conclusions, right, after doing a lot of soul searching. I studied engineering because I like the math and science. For you, maybe you think that's really weird, but I actually enjoy my calculus classes. But they don't really apply it on a day-to-day basis, right? It's a lot of paperwork, very different social environment than what I grew up with. I talked to a lot of engineers, right? Because that's what I wanted to do. I had customers that were engineers and thought a lot about it. And at the end of the day, guys, I felt more satisfied with what I was accomplishing in the world by choosing to do a career here. The company had a really big impact on me while I was in college. My family, I feel like my family was always pretty normal, but when I was 18, I was going off to college. My parents were in a situation where they lived off a disability check and welfare money. And I knew the deal was when I went to college, I'd have to pay for everything on my own. And I did. Now, I don't say that to brag. I say that out of gratitude because I'm grateful. I don't feel like with where I was slotted in life, most people in my situation would have to put college on hold and save up till they can go. But it would have taken a lot longer than 5 years to go through college. And, I'm very grateful for it. The car I had broke down after a while. I had to go a long time without a car. I eventually saved up money. I bought my own 2015 Toyota Corolla completely with Cutco money. And it really made a big impact with me. I was at a time in my life I didn't have a lot of positive people in my personal influence, like my family and a lot of the friends I had. And it just completely changed, right? The types of influences I had and, a lot of perspectives on how the world works. And I felt more passionate and more satisfied with what I was giving back to the world by getting the chance to impact a lot of other people in that time too. And for everyone, it's different, guys. Not everyone's in the same situation. I'm not saying that, you're in the same situation as me, but my good friend Michelle, she got to go to her number 1 law school of choice because of this. I've seen a lot of people get the jobs they want. I've seen a lot of people who didn't work in school and they had 4.0 GPAs and they struggled to get jobs and they had to interview at a lot of places before they had to settle on an offer. And I've seen kids with average GPAs work here that got offered every single job they interviewed at. And when they interviewed, it just felt like they were picking which employer to choose. For some people, for most people, that's what their biggest thing is. And then confidence. Now, I don't care if you're the kid right now where you're full of confidence and you don't need any help, or you're so timid and scared and you have no idea why the heck you're in this room right now. You're going to grow from it. Everyone grows from it. The biggest example I can think of, I trained a girl named Taylor Dunbar. And I remember running her training. There were 12 people in it. And she was on the very end. And anytime I looked at her direction, boom, deflected eye contact. Did not look me in the eyes once for 2 days. And she was probably like the most anxious and nervous, like worrisome, like timid person I think I ever worked with. But she was a hard worker. She earned an assistant manager promotion within 4 months. And I remember going to Lakeland for the summer. And I remember coming back from Lakeland. I remember walking into this office, walking by a room where she was running an interview for about 10 people. very confident, just making big decisions. And the woman I saw during the interview was just a complete metamorphosis of the person I trained 10 months ago. And then she's like one of the biggest examples I can think of, but everybody has that type of growth curve the longer they're here. Between the ages of 18 and 22 years old is like a very critical 4 years in someone's personal development where we're all trying to figure out who am I, what am I about, what kind of life do I want to have, right? It's 4 years in someone's life where it's a big, like, what is my identity? It played a big role for me in that. I've seen it play a big role for a lot of other people. I felt more, passionate about helping give that back to other people like I've seen. And anytime you make any big decision, right, there'll always be like a little bit of doubt. I remember, driving up and down the roads of Gainesville, and I was excited, but, I had thoughts in my head like, is this really the city I want to settle in? And they laugh because they're all ritzy kids from South Florida that moved to Gainesville, which is the opposite. But you know what? 10 months later, I can't be any happier with the decision I made. I can honestly say every morning when I wake up and come to work, I'm actually in a good mood. I look forward to it. I love coming in my office. I love seeing the people I work with. I love what we're accomplishing. I'm very grateful. I feel like most of America can't say that, but I love what we're doing here. And then boom. And then I'll say, all right, guys, so why do you think I decided to take a long time to share that? Obviously, that took a while for me to say, but I thought it was worth it. Why do you think I decided to share that? All right, from right there, right? Obviously, everyone's intro talk and personal story is different. Don't use mine, right, if that's not you. Use what's for you, but what did you pick up from mine? What did y'all think was the purpose behind a lot of what I said and what type of fear bubbles I popped? One at a time.
How you were saying how you didn't think this was going to last, and then as you kept going through, you're like, oh, maybe it is a better idea, pros and cons. And
that's a point I would hit. I think that's a big point, right? Now, I'm doing a personal story for a district, right? When I'm like, yeah, is this my career and stuff like that, right? So obviously tailor a little bit, but I mean, that's true. I didn't want to plan to be here as a career, right? So I share that with them because none of them want to. Now, I don't say that because I want them to think about being here as a career. That's not really a big objective of training. But the objective I'm making is that, again, it's more just about relatability here, right? I'm not like somebody where knives is my life. Okay, what else?
Building confidence in you and the program. And just showing that you are somebody they should follow.
Building confidence in the trainer, right? And hang on to that for 1 second. So when I'm like, what'd you pick up, right? Somebody will say something along the lines of like, oh yeah, trusting, relating to you, right? I'm like, yeah, I'm training you all day today. I'm training you all day tomorrow. I'm coaching you. I'm more of a coach than I am like a boss, and I want to have like a lot of trust here with us. But I also want to let you guys know you didn't just get drafted onto any team. You got drafted onto a championship team, right? We are a newer office. Furniture and stuff so far. But, you got drafted onto a team where we're number 5 in the nation right now. You got drafted onto a team where, we're kicking a lot of butt, and I already ran an office. I was one of the top offices in the company. So I feel confident in me as a trainer. Now for you, you could do anything. If you're in Orlando, obviously you could tell them I was a part of the number 1 office in the company. Well, I guess if you started this year, you can't say that because that was the 2016 Silver Cup. I was part of, yeah, you could. I was part of an office. I was part of a nationally competing office that's been number 1 in the nation. It's been number 2 in the nation many times. Something along those lines. I was part of one of the top divisions. I was part of the number 1 new district office in the nation. So just give them confidence, right, about your skill set, whatever it is. And we're in a top division, so all of us could say something along the lines of like, yeah, number 5 office in the nation, right, the top division, top new division in the region, whatever. Hey, DB?
Yeah, you made it so that every personality can relate to it. So whether it's like a shy person raising the story of someone else, or like a really cocky person, instead of you're really cocky at it.
Yeah, I love doing that at the end of my intro talk. This was not something I had started doing till this fall, by the way. It was just like one of the things I switched up that changed my launch a lot. But after I do the story, instead of ending it right there, I basically go off about like, the reason I decided to do this job is because it made a big impact in my life. And say what the biggest impact for you was, right? For me, like I said, it had a lot to do with money. And for everybody else, it could be different, but it would just be like, you know what, helped me become a much more confident person, right? I wanted a job where I was growing myself a lot. I went off on the fact that I have friends with 4.0 GPAs that struggled to get jobs, and I had friends with average GPAs that worked here for years and they got every job they offered. So it's one of those things where I'm also instilling confidence and like they need me more than they need straight A's. because that is true. It says a lot more about yourself if you have work experience and you work here than if you know how to study. Anything else?
Two things. One, just talking about the cut code through college, which basically just said with the, you know, they need more than straight A's. And then two, I think another fear bubble is like some people think that you just have to know a bunch of rich people to sell cut codes. So you kind of pop that fear bubble with your story too.
Yep. Now, by the way, if there's not a specific thing you can relate to, use the story of someone else as an example. Does that make sense? So if there's kids in training that you can't relate to, right, you could use stories of other people like them as the example. I can't relate. When it comes to things like money, I can't relate to 99% of the students at UF that I train where I'm like, yeah, I had to pay for everything, right? Because, I mean, I just can't. UF's such an expensive school. But it doesn't matter, right? Because I'm always using stories of like, you know, my private school kids, my 4.0 kids, etc. Who else had a hand up? Was it you, Thomas?
Just the opportunities that are available. Like you made it known that like you can do great things like growth.
Yep. So yeah, guys, you can see what's available. A big point, again, relatability, trust. Oh, another thing I do. So I'm like, what else stuck out? Yeah, we've all had that coach that sucked at the sport before, right? You know, who's had that coach that sucked? Or who's had that teacher that like just sucked at teaching? Guys, I'm not that teacher. I'm good at the sport. I love that we promote from within because you will never have a manager that can't relate to you and has never been in your shoes before. You just won't. I started doing this too. Maybe some of y'all could pull it off, but not everybody. But I'm like, yeah, another reason, some people think this, but they don't want to say it out loud. You know, I have a baby face. Well, you know what? I'm not actually super old. I'm 23 years old. But again, I'm in this position for a reason. And, you know, because I led one of the top offices and we are nationally competing office. Now, if you're 18 or 19, should you say your age? Probably not.
Old enough.
But you know what? You know what I do think is worth it? I do think it's worth it to be like, yeah, you guys probably thought I got a baby face. I mean, I'm not really super old, but obviously I'm here for a reason because I was part of the #1 office in the nation and the fact that we're in a nationally competing division. Something like that.
Shut up.
I think that's everything I can think of for personal story. Yeah, that's everything I can think of to hit for a personal story. So y'all get the structure of it, right? Now, craft your own. You have to make it very genuine. People can feel when it's genuine. Another thing that helped out a lot with my launch and my intro talk was when I felt less like I have to like make sure I'm like this and just more like I'll just be myself and be super genuine with them. So walk through how you heard about the job, walk through your training in your first weekend, your advancement process, the fact that you were an assistant manager in a top office and y'all sold this much. I like to say I chose to do this job because of the impact I do. I really like talking about how 18 and 22 is so important. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's not that I love knives so much, but I love being able to impact others. And then I would, for all of y'all, I would go off on each big thing that kids could be looking for, right? Whether it's getting offered every job, whether it's going to grad school, whether it's finances, right? Whether it's the Taylor example. And obviously I look at the specific kids. When I say Taylor and I'm like, she was probably the most high anxiety person I trained, what person do you think I'm looking at? The really nervous person. Or sometimes like somebody that's a really high innovator. They might not look super nervous, but you could tell they're a high innovator and they might secretly be nervous and you just can't tell. Okay, let's see. I have another 20-ish minutes. All right, next thing Trey goes, he reviews the job. So he's like, get lots of numbers, call them, read, smile, cut, call. Again, one of those things, expectations, boom, needs to meet reality. And then read, smile, cut, call. You want to go off on read, smile, cut, call. Guys, you don't need to be smart to work here. You don't need to be talented to work here. I will say that again. Selling a lot of Cutco and doing really well here has nothing to do with your intelligence, has nothing to do with your talent. It just has to do with, do you know how to read English? Guys, raise your hand if you can read. Raise your hand if you can smile, right? Raise your hand if you can cut food. Raise your hand if you can push 10 digits to the phone, hold your ear and say, hey, Joe. Oh my gosh. If you forget everything you learned today and everything tomorrow, you're so excited to work here, you run down the stairs and you hit your head and you get amnesia. Right? And it's like this like weird cartoon style amnesia where you're talking to a customer and then boom, you forget your first name, you forget her name. That's okay, right? Read. Okay. Smile. Cut rope. Oh, let's cut rope. Call Joe. Oh, call Joe. And you'll be okay. The rest of today and tomorrow, I'm just teaching you how to be above average. I'm just teaching you how to make incentive pay. So I get it. You know, you might have looked at the times and you're like, wow, that's a lot of time that's unpaid. Well, you know what? I'm not paid to run training either. I'm just spending my time and your time so that way you can make incentive pay and do really well here to be above average. So I hit, like, again, the not paid thing, right? But, you know, I'm not paid either. And you don't have to be smart to work here. And Trey's talk, because I've heard him do this a lot, but I'm like, because I listened to his thing, but I don't know if, like, he said it in this or didn't. Did he talk about the kid who wrote cousin the wrong way on his sheet?
No.
Okay. Guys, I had a kid once, right? And you'll remember me, so I can say his name. His name was Wyatt Dale. He was 19 years old. On his sheet, it said, how'd you hear about the job? He wrote his cousin, Cuzin. He was number 1 in the group. He sold 10 grand, and he won an all-inclusive trip to Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. I'm going to be blunt. Now, he was a good kid. I don't mean this in a mean way. I think he had some learning disabilities. I don't mean this in a mean way, but to call it what it is, was he the sharpest person in the room? Was he the most intelligent? No. Was he the most talented? No, but he read small and cut, called, and just listened to what I was saying and had a positive attitude, and he did well. And you guys should say that, because that is the case, something that we had 3 years ago. It's crazy to me. Right? Sold more than I did for the push. All right. Ooh, here's another big point to read small cut call. Guys, is this an easy job to overthink? Yes or no?
Yes.
I know I got to read this manual and do these calls and do these appointments, but it's a simple job. Now, if you overthink, you already know it, right? It's like a personality thing. If you already know if you overthink things in life or not, and if you do, you'll probably overthink this at some point before you do your first appointment. And if that's you and you're overthinking and you're freaking out tonight, well, remind yourself, do you know how to read and smile and cut and call? Well, you'll be okay. That's all you have to do. It is a simple job. It's easy to overthink in training, but it's a very simple job. Those are the only 4 things you need to know. Also, read, smile, cut, call. Are any of those personality related, by the way? You're going to notice so many different types of personalities, right? Something some people worry, guys, is like, oh, you have to have a sales personality. You don't, right? We have so many different types of people, right? And when you all see Brandon, he's completely opposite of me. You'll see his emotions on his sleeve, right? For me, you won't really see a lot at all. All these different types of examples. I'm like, you'll see it when kids come in and out today, how many different types of people. The only correlation people have isn't a personality thing. It's just, are you a motivated person and have goals for yourself? Then 3 requirements, right? Trey talks about the team meeting on Wednesday nights, the paycheck meeting, the coaching calls. I don't need to delve a whole lot into that. It's just simple as saying what you need to do. But what I will say with it is you guys all want different schedules here. That's okay. We're very flexible. These are the only 3 things that you need to do. What does Trey talk about when he talks about team night out? What's the point he hits on?
We like hanging out.
Circle of
Influence.
Circle of influence. Guys, y'all have heard the saying, if you want to be a millionaire, who should you hang out with?
Millionaires.
If you want to be in shape, should you get advice from the person who's very overweight or the person who's a bodybuilder and super in shape? Exactly. Here's the funny thing, guys. Both of them will give you advice about building muscle. So, random life tip, guys. 90% of the world will give you advice. Only 10% is credible. It's just a human thing. Everyone always is going to want to give you advice. You're going to always have everyone tell you what decisions you need to make with your life and what you need to do. Anytime someone tells you something, you got to ask yourself, is it credible or not, right? So, you're going to have the couple who's been married for 50 years through thick and thin give you marriage advice, and you're going to also have the uncle who's been divorced 7 times give you the marriage advice. Who's the one you should listen to if you want a good marriage?
The 50 years.
Exactly. And then, if you want to be a top rep, who should you hang out with?
Top reps.
Guess what it'll be Wednesday night?
Team
night out. It's funny how it works, right? All the people who come to team night out end up being top reps. So I'm a little on team night out. I think it's important to give a little life advice in training, right? When I talk about everyone's going to want to give you advice, just take advice from the people who matter, right? And circle of influence. That's not going to necessarily be a big deal in their first week in pop. Like it can a little bit if they have neg parents or something. But if they leave and they feel like I'm getting life value from this, right? I'm getting so much value, right? Like I'm going to become such a great person here. I like doing little things like that, so that way they get that type of feeling from training. Expectations, right? Positive attitude. So get them to think big. Guys, you should expect to sell everything on every appointment you do. That's what you should, right? Now, Trey goes off on I can't stand when people are negative. Glass half empty, glass half full. I say the same thing, but I'll also say this. The best football team, guys, do you think the best football teams go into games saying we'll see what happens, or do you think they expect to win every game? They expect to win every time. Now, does that mean they'll win every time? No. You should expect to sell everything to everybody you do an appointment with. Does that mean you'll sell everything to everybody? I've never seen it happen. You'd be the first if you did it. but you will be very successful and kick a lot of butt. Same thing as like the top sports teams do. Then what else? Honesty. I really like going off on honesty in there. So guys, I'm all about being blunt and to the point. I don't like it when people beat around the bush with me. So I never beat around the bush with other people. So when I tell you something, just know like there's no asterisk with it, right? Like I'm meaning exactly what I say when I say it. Now I'm blunt in a nice way. I know you might have like some people are like, I'm just blunt. And they're actually kind of jerks instead of like just being blunt. Like I'm a nice guy, but I'm still blunt and tell you how things are. I respect it the most when y'all tell me the same thing. I only promote people I feel are very honest and very loyal. It means a lot. My assistant managers, right? I'm very loyal to them. If I need to stick up for them, I'll stick up 10 out of 10 times, and they'll do the same thing for me if they need to. Going off a little bit about that again, is giving them more comfort in who I am and that I am being blunt and to the point with them, and that type of thing. And really, those are the kind of people you want to attract. You do want to attract honest, loyal people because those are the people that you want on your squad. And if you're going to be a DM, now obviously those are the ones you want to be assistant managers. Best effort, if you're going to spend all your time on something, why not put in 100% of your effort? And then he talks, and then objectives, right? So guys, I only have 3 objectives from you: personal growth, financial growth, and professional growth. So let's talk about it. Financial growth. How much was your biggest paycheck you ever got? You don't have to answer that out loud. I want you to make more than that. I want you to make it like your first $1,000 paycheck here, right? Professional growth. You sitting here today, right? I don't have you in training because I want you to sell knives forever. My goal for you is that if you want to be a doctor, I want you to be the best doctor you could be. If you want to be a lawyer, I want you to be the best lawyer you could be. If you want to be a teacher, I want you to be the best teacher you could be. Because of the communication skills you'll learn. Because of the life advice you'll learn. Personal, you might think this sounds kind of cheesy, but no, I say it with full conviction. I'll be a better father and I'll be a better husband in the future because I sold knives. Right? Which might sound weird, right? But all I do is I'm a highly paid teacher, right? That's all I do is communicate with other people. So, of course, that's something that I'll do well at, and you guys will too, right? You guys will become better communicators with the people close in your life, and you will be better friends. You will be better sisters, brothers, sons, daughters because of it too. All right, so we're almost done. What did y'all pick up from the last things I did? Because I just went over, here are my objectives, here are my expectations, the requirements, those types of things. What do y'all think were the main points I was hitting there?
I mean, you're just setting standards. You want these kids to be positive. You want them to be honest, and you want them to be a team-oriented person.
Okay. Yep. Expectations. What else?
Giving them value.
Okay. Giving them value. It's what I was talking about earlier. If reality doesn't meet expectation, right, they're gonna quit, right? So I'm like setting that expectation here. Of like, you have to be here Wednesdays, you have to go on coaching calls. Those things aren't surprises, right? But the other expectations are things that they can look forward to, like how much they'll grow, but also how fun it is too.
You tell them what you want. Like they know clearly what you want.
Yeah, along the same train of thought, expectations.
I like that you say that, like, I don't expect you to sell knives your whole life. If you want to be a doctor, I'm going to help you be a doctor. You're not like trapping them. Like you're helping them grow no matter what they're doing.
Yep, exactly, right? So they know, like, because when their parents don't have a face to put on you, right, what do you think your average 40-year-old mom whose kid is in training and their boss wants them to sell a lot of knives, what kind of face are they going to probably attach to you as a manager? Like, I'm the slimy salesperson where I just want this kid to sell a lot, right?
Yeah.
And, like, I'm letting them know, like, I'm not that person. Like, I'm not here because I want you to just sell a bunch. I mean, I do want you to sell a bunch, right? But I want you to sell a bunch because of how much it'll help you grow.
I'd say just the transparency, because the content you're delivering is the same content that Trey delivered, but it's delivered very differently. And I think that's important because I remember the first time I branched, I tried to be like Brian Hurlman. Obviously, I am not Brian Hurlman. So I think just making sure, obviously it's very authentic. So.
Okay, that is such a huge key for training is you have to be you because they could tell when you're not you, right? So if I try to be Trey in training, if I try to talk with how loud Trey talks sometimes, with the projection he talks sometimes, with the intensity of his eyes stare sometimes, if I tried to do that, I would be a very, very awkward training. Y'all would feel really awkward. So instead, I do what's natural for me. But I do say a lot of the same things as him because I say all the same things that is genuine for me, right? Even though some of his mannerisms might not be. So you do have to do what's normal for you, right? Just know it's not like you don't have to be exactly like them, right, for them to want to be here, but you have to be someone where you're very honest, you're very transparent, and you're a very good person, and that's what matters for them to stick with you. So
What was your third objective? Financial, professional growth.
Personal, right? That's when I'm like, yeah, it sounds pretty cheesy, but you will be a better husband. You'll be a better father because of your experience here. And after that, that's the main thing with trading. The next thing you're going to go ahead and do is just boom, go right immediately into the demo. Oh, actually, one more thing. Why we do what we do. So when you talk about why we do what we do, you notice Trey says what? Review from the interview, right? Trey's like, as a review from the interview. Why do you think he throws in that phrase, as a review from the interview?
Transparency.
Right, and they should be like, okay, yeah, this wasn't the interview, right? Everything does make sense, right? The same type of thing from the interviews, the same type of thing in training, the same type of thing from the job. All right, so I'll talk about what year was Cutco founded? This is going to be pretty similar to Trey's, right? You'll notice some differences, right? It's just that, and that's okay. What year were you founded?
1940.
Okay, what year was Vector founded?
1981.
Why am I saying those dates?
So, like, we've been around for a long time.
Yeah, guys, we've been around for 70 years. We're the #1 selling brand of cutlery in the nation. Cutco Cutlery makes up 25% of all cutlery sales that happen in North America. We're in 1 out of 6 households. Raise your hand if you know someone who owns Cutco, right? And a couple kids will. Guess what? All of you do. You don't know because you don't talk to your friends where you're like, hey, my mom has these knives. What kind of knives does your mom have, right? It'd be a little bit weird, right? We're in 1 out of 6 households, 16%. You all have friends who own Cutco. You will see it when you start working here. You're like, I don't even know my mom or my friend's mom owns Cutco. So you're not selling a product, you have to hype up. Cheap products, you have to hype up, right? And that's where people get pushy salesperson. High quality products, you don't. You just show it, right? This product, you just show it. That's why all you have to do is read strong cut, call, and they'll buy, because that's what happens when you sell the best type. And you know what? If none of you are in training today, we're going to still be the #1 selling brand of cutlery in the nation. Vector, the program works. We had the same manual since the 80s. Now, obviously, millennials don't talk the way people in the 80s do, right? So, like, that kind of stuff's changed. And, we've done tweaks. It's the same format, though. It's the same. You build credibility. You establish a problem. You build value. All the same type of thing, because it works. It's the same type of manual that everybody, that all of us have. All right, now why do we not sell inside stores? Why do we only sell directly? Oh, it scares me that like only one, y'all don't know that. No, I know you guys know. All right, price, yeah, obviously. Walmart don't work for free. Warehouses don't work for free. Truck drivers don't drive trucks for free, right? If you sell inside stores, your prices are going to double. We cut it in half. Also, if somebody sees a $1 pair of scissors with, one with a high markup price, which one will they probably buy? That's just consumer psychology, not a big deal. But they do it to save the most money, but it hurts them because they waste more long term. So we get to market directly. Also, just so you know, if your resume said, I was really, really good at pushing the buttons really fast at the register, Wall Street Journal wouldn't write about us, right? New York Law School wouldn't be like, oh, wow, you're such a great cashier, come on in. I'm not demeaning those jobs, but I mean, that's the case. Y'all learn how to market yourself. You put on your resume, you know how to build a clientele base, network, prospect, build value, get referrals, etc. Next thing, why we do what we do. We're not telemarketers. Now, there's a couple different business models out there for sales. As a sales company, we could have been one where we telemarket to go door to door and solicit. What those companies do, right? They'll like buy numbers from other services, which, and they'll call random people. There will be a telemarketer job where they call them and they'll probably get a bonus on how many they book. And then you go do that appointment. Instead, we don't do any of that at all. You reach out and book your own appointments with people you're personally referred to. Why do you think we chose to do that model? Well, for professionalism, right, and personability. No one likes telemarketers, right? No one likes random sales calls that they're completely unexpecting. No one likes that. It's more comfortable for them when they're expecting your call and their friend has the product. You also get the ultimate flexibility. If you have an organic chemistry exam on Tuesday morning, but Ms. Jones wants to see Cutco on Monday, well, do you think the telemarketer will book her for Monday? Yep, they want their bonus, right? If you got a hot day Friday at 6, but Ms. Jones told the telemarketer she wants to do it Friday night at 6. Well, you got a date with Ms. Jones instead. So here you get the ultimate flexibility because you schedule when they are, but you'll always have a manager help you out, guide you, and help you plan out the schedule. But it'll be up to you to put it in those times. So see how I'm so transparent with you're going to book your own appointments, right? You're going to make your own phone calls, right? You're going to do the scheduling them. But I spin it from them thinking like, oh, wow, they don't give us people. So from them thinking that could be a bad thing because their friend said that. It's like, oh, that's a really good thing they don't give us people, right? So that way it's more personal for them and we're not randomly, soliciting random people online. All right, and then this is one that you want to hit really hard and crush. Your first weekend, guys, you're going to do appointments with people you know. why do you do your first appointments with people you know? And they're going to say the things we said in the interview, which was, oh, you know, it makes it more comfortable for you. And I agree with those. I'm like, yeah, you get more comfortable. None of you have done this before. All of you be nervous to do your first hour-long appointment with a total stranger. You get honest feedback. Here's the thing. There's two other main reasons. One, step outside your comfort zone. I take a lot of pride in pushing people outside their comfort zone. And, you know, I know some people, like your parents may have been afraid to do that to you, right? And you didn't do a lot of things to make you uncomfortable. And if that's you, then it's my job to help push you outside your comfort zone. If I don't throw you out there, you start out reading a manual to your mom, right, and your friends' moms, and then you read the manual to people you know less and you know less. Before you know it, a month from now, right, you'll be confident going to a complete stranger, right, building a need, building credibility, building value, networking, something you never would have had the confidence to do your first week on the job. And it's because we pay you to do appointments with people you know. Now let me ask you this. Well, before I ask you this, just so you guys know, most small businesses do business when they're new with family and friends. Like, this isn't like a Cutco thing. This is like if I was going to open a mom and pop pizza shop, who do you think some of my first customers would be? My family and friends, right? If you're going to have a grand opening to a furniture store, who would you invite to your grand opening? Everybody. I'm not going to be like, Mom, you can't come. That's weird. Of course you'll come. Now, do I want all my family and friends to buy furniture? Is that why I invited them all? No, right? I didn't invite them all just to make them all buy furniture. I did it because I want to get the word out, right? Doctors, when they open their own general practice, right? Like, not in a hospital, but if I'm going to open my own practice, I have no reviews. I have no patients, right? Obviously, I don't have a reason to choose me versus the doctor, right? With a lot of reviews. Who do you think some of my first patients are? People my family and friends refer to me, right? Until I build it up, until I get a reputation, until I can build it higher. Same thing with lawyers, right? Some of their first cases, right? They get some real like crap cases, right? And then cases like they know because of family and friends and people they refer. And you know what? I started with family and friends too, but I have my regulars now. I have the same ladies buy from me every holiday season. But I have the same ladies who always refer people to me. It's just going to happen over time, right? And it's no different here. So you get the word out with people that you know. Also, guys, write this down. Networking and prospecting. I want all of you guys to write that down. Now, that's like me talking to the training class, just so y'all know. Like, I tell the training class to write this down, networking and prospecting. What's the one thing that if you go to a resume workshop or like a career fair, that they keep telling you have to be good at this thing to do well? Networking. And you're like, okay, I have to be good at networking, right? It's all about who you know. How the heck do I do that, right? They don't really tell you how to do it. And then you do things like you'll go to your college's career fair where you're like, yeah, go here to network, right? And put yourself out there. You'll put on a suit. You'll bring a resume. You'll shake a guy's hand, give him the resume, but you know what? So did 200 other people that day. Here, right, you learn networking skills, but you do it in a way where you show off your communication skills. So you will be recommended to people who do the type of job that you're studying in school. Obviously, if you're a nursing major, right, and you share your goal with your customer, you're a nursing major, well, what types of friends do you think they'll recommend you to if they have nursing friends? They're nursing friends, right? I've sold to people who were engineers because I told them I'm an engineering student. So, you know, I've had customers. I remember a specific customer I did, and he did mid-level management in Lockheed Martin, which is an engineering firm, you know, in the Orlando area. And I remember on that appointment, at the end of it, he told me how impressive this was and how much this was like helping me stand out among all the other engineers that didn't do this. And he told me this when I got closer to graduating to talk to him. Right? So that's the type of networking that y'all learn here, right? So work here long enough, you'll get that type of networking in your field. Instead of being the random kid to shake their hand, right? Obviously, you're the one where you're showing off how good your communication skills are and you're making a sale. All right, so you learn that type of skill. That's big because a lot of your sharp kids have heard that before and they like legit don't know what that means when they say to network. So I spin it from referrals being a scary thing to get referrals to holy crap, I need to be really good at getting referrals. And then that's the end of why we do what we do. And then there's other things y'all saw in the intro talk. He talks about the sample kit. I don't really need to hit hard on that. You tell them not to steal, right? Intimidating. I'll, you know, put a felony on your record if you do happen to steal. Now, he doesn't really do that till later when he gets character references. But he goes off on how he's loaning the kit to him. And then he talks about the Walmart versus Super Walmart, right? Y'all remember that in the intro talk? Right now, you guys have Walmart, but you could get Super Walmart, work really hard, right? Who sells more? So work hard your first 10 days. You can win a lot. Again, I'm just repeating the same things over and over. So they'll see me say the same things over and over. Work hard your first 10 days. Random thing. They're not going to remember everything you say in training. That's a long time. Do you guys remember everything that was said to you in training? I mean, maybe better than that. You've been learning and scripting training, right? But you don't. That's just not how it is. But if you say certain things 3 or 5 times throughout training, are they going to remember that? Yes, right? So by the time you say it the 3rd time, they're like, oh, okay, that's a good thing. I don't think that's the first time they heard it. But like themes I'm always repeating, right? It's like work hard your first 10 days. That's a theme I repeated there when I talked about the fast start. How I didn't regret it, even though I wanted to work really part-time. I worked full-time my first 10 days so I could get a good paycheck and move up really quickly. So again, it's just repetition with repeating the same themes. But if you keep saying the same types of things like that throughout training, it also shows a lot of transparency, right? So it shows a lot of transparency, gives them credibility, gives them a lot of trust in you. All right, that is the entire intro talk. I'm going to start matching you guys up and start pairing you guys to role play this. So Daniela, does Trey want them to like role play partners or like groups where DMs critique their role play? Can you ask Trey and Patrick?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I took the hour on it.
For Joe though?
Yeah.
Now, with the intro talk, again, I do want to reiterate to you guys, be yourself, right? Try to do word for word because obviously a lot of the words are there for a reason. I'm not going to tell you guys to redo the whole thing with your own music because try to do it word for word. But what matters more is make sure you do it in a way that is genuine to you and who you are. And the main thing is you want them to feel comfortable with everything that they're doing with the job. So with you guys, an assignment y'all obviously have, if you haven't been assigned this, is you do want to make your own personal story. So again, look at all the fear bubbles, right? Again, what were the fear bubbles they had that you want to pop? And let's list the fear bubbles if you haven't. So when you make a personal story, you can think to yourself, did I make sure I popped every bubble?
While you're giving your talk, I emailed out to the division the personal story outline that they can use to fill in their own.
Awesome. So again, bubbles that you want to make sure you pop is that you have to have the right type of personality to do this, or
Don't want to bother family.
don't want to bother family, right? All you have to do is read the manual. It's not hard to do. Or if they're really nervous, right? This is a good thing if you're like normally like a nervous type person.
Let's open it up for Q&A for like 10 minutes, and then we'll partner everyone up, and they can start. We'll have like a few minutes for role play, and then we'll actually go around and start grading everybody.
All right, sounds good. All right, so we'll do Q&A. Now you can ask me anything throughout day one, but I want to make it more intro talk related, but like maybe certain situations or things like that you have with kids.
I'm down.
Any questions? Because Trey said we have 10 minutes of Q&A, so let's not make this the weird Q&A where because we have to do this.
What's the number 1 change that you made in your intro talk to make 100% show or lunch?
The networking thing was a thing that I didn't do beforehand, right? And your managers might not go off on the networking thing like I did because it was just kind of a thing I just did, and then all of a sudden everybody started launching.
Would you say it was a confidence thing too, or just networking basically?
Not a confidence. I haven't really lacked confidence in a really long time, but being genuine to my personality,
Okay.
right? So being genuine to like your personality and not your district manager's personality. And the longer you're open over the summer, the better you're going to get at it. It's going to, in July, you're going to be like, man, I wish I ran training like this back in May.
Mm-hmm.
So good questions.
Now, do you ever get kids zoned out in your talks, like your intro talk?
Okay, what did you guys notice the whole time I was talking and the whole time Trey talks? I walk around, right? So I'm going to walk in front of the kid's zoning out. I'm going to get really loud, like really close to that kid. And then I'm going to walk around the whole time. So I'm switching up my body language. Do you guys know the proper way to make eye contact throughout training?
Person.
Have y'all heard about splitting the room up in quadrants?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing as the interview quadrants. So you want to make sure the whole time that if you're going to look at the crowd, you want to make sure that you're looking at their eyes, right? It's like just like looking right in their eyes. But I'm always making sure I'm hitting someone around this side of the room, someone around this side, then that corner, and then all of a sudden this corner. Makes sense? Saying complete things to them. I'm not like talking like this the whole time. I don't look like I'm looking at anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a good point to keep engagement. Changing the volume of your voice throughout it and how fast you talk, right? As long as your voice doesn't stay the same volume and the same speed the whole training and the whole interview or the whole whatever the heck you're public speaking, you'll keep engagement. The times that people start to zone out the most is like when it starts to feel monotone because it stayed the same pace and the same volume. I'll keep engagement. What other questions do you guys have? Well, your guys are gonna have a lot more questions once you run training, right? No one's in the position where they ran training. If it was at the end of the summer after branches, y'all would have tons of questions. You're like, this one kid did this crazy thing. Sometimes you'll have a kid just say something ridiculously dumb in training, and like something that kind of scares the other kids, and you got to react to it the right way. Here's an example. One time in training, I was doing the polish and present, right? Y'all know the polish and present, like here's how you polish and present the knife. I remember handing it to this girl. I had a girl on the other end of the room. She's like, is it dangerous to give them knives? Right? And when you have things like that, it's all about how you handle it. So I want to make her look like she's a freaking idiot for doing that, right? Not to make her feel bad, but because like I'm not, I don't want to hurt everyone else's results. I'd be messed up to hurt their success because of this one kid. So I'll like, yeah, it's like with your mom and your parents and then people your parents told you to see. I hope your mom's not dangerous, right? Like basically that's what I did and they laughed about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Trey's intro talk, the one recorded, did he use the example of on-topic questions and mention like the elephant running in? Okay, sometimes if a kid just asks a really weird question, because again, like I don't want a fear bubble to appear when I'll have all my fear bubbles pop, like one just pops up, right? And the kid's like, what if no one buys anything, right? Sometimes like my immediate response, if I don't know how else to react, I'm like, what if an elephant rams into my office right now? I'll probably call 911 and hide somewhere, but is that probably going to happen? No, not really. Worst case, call me. So it is important to handle that because y'all don't really have that now, but when you launch 100 people, you're going to all have stories about like this crazy incident, right? And like if you branch before, you get it. So it's important to like handle that the right way so they could see you're the one in charge, right? And you're the one with control and not anybody else has control in there. So that is a really good random one to mention. Another random thing that I do want to mention is also emotionally managing yourself before going into training too. You always want to be in the zone, and while you run training, I've had trainings that sucked, and the whole time I was in training, like my brain was thinking about other things. So I was thinking about like these push PCs I have to do, and this thing I need to do, or this one problem. And I thought I ripped it, right? I thought I did it because I'm on autopilot mode, right? Because you guys have gone on autopilot, I'm sure, in interviews, right? It's going to happen in training too throughout the summer. And then I've had other trainings where I would just intentionally dumped all my thoughts out. I didn't even worry about it. Training's the most important thing that happens. As a branch manager, just know you spend a lot of money to run training and you don't really like understand it just because of the way the commission statements work unless you dig through it. But in the grand scheme of the summer, you're going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. I think, I don't know, like maybe 40 or 50 grand in expenses is how much total I spent, as far as recruiting goes. So you guys will have a lot of expenses on it. So it's deserving the most of your time, right? It's the most important thing to your sales week. So just know there's not going to be anything else more important than training when you are in training, right? You're recruiting, right? Say you have an assistant manager that is running an interview at the same time, that's not as important as the training class in front of you because this is all your bills in front of you. So nothing else deserves your time, right? Literally, if your house is on fire and your roommate calls you right before training and says everything you own is about to burn down, right? Hey, it doesn't matter. It'll be burnt before I get there, right? I'll just run training and then do whatever I need to do, right? So that is really like a big thing to be successful as a branch in general, non-training thing, is being really good with adversity and how the way you react to adversity. So just know when you run training, there's nothing else that deserves your attention, right? And it could be like your mom called you 7 times, right? And that's like really weird. Maybe like that's not something she would do. Doesn't matter. You can finish training at 6 o'clock. That's when you call her. Don't worry about calling or texting during role player breaks. During role play, be engaging, walk around, right? Listen to their role play, right? Make sure they sound good.
I was just gonna, on that same topic you were on, if you wouldn't mind.
By the way, Daniela and Jenna, and even Elizabeth, anyone who's run trainings, if you guys have things you want to add on, go for it.
I was just going to see if you could cover if somebody walks into training, that shouldn't be walking into training. Like, I don't know. I remember during my summer, I had like someone's mom come into my training. But you just cover with everyone like how to handle that. So they know
I had it happen.
Yeah, I had it happen.
Okay, this was a worst case. I'm in the middle of I'm like doing the schedule talk for first weekend, right? We're talking about first weekend. This mom comes in out of nowhere, just barges in, right? And just not the most presentable lady for all of them to see in this professional environment. And anyway, she's like, "Are you Joe?" I'm like, "Yes." And she goes off about how I owe her daughter all this money, and she's like, "My daughter been working hard, and you have not been paying her what she needs." Well, that's a really crappy thing to happen in front of a training class, right? So, but they saw how I did it. They saw I didn't get emotional or freak out. I was just like, "Okay, here, I'd be happy to help you out with that real quick." Because that's a thing that I can't say wait outside for me real quick because she wasn't going to let me wait. So I'd be like, "All I want you to do, guys, go to this page, role play with each other real quick. I'll be right back." And I walked out and handled it and came back in, right? And then I laughed it off, and I'm like, "Yeah, there was a big misunderstanding with a lot of stuff. That was awkward." And they all laughed after I did, like, that was awkward. Because they get it, because they're like, that was really awkward. But again, the way they see me do it was, I'm like, "Oh, I got caught not paying my kids," right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that was really weird. It was a misunderstanding. Sometimes pointing out how weird something is a good point. Now, I'm not saying, like, now that's not a normal thing that happens. But, like, if someone else walked, I just tell most of them to wait. Sometimes you'll get a kid walk in and turn in their sample kit. I'll just be like, "Oh, hey, just wait outside for me real quick," right? If I have an assistant manager there, I'll be like, "Yeah, go talk to Kaylee," right? "Go talk to so-and-so." And then just trust your assistant manager knows what to do with it. And then if I said, if I was like, "Go talk to Tyler," and then Tyler came in like, "Oh, what do I do with this kid and his kit," right? If I see the confused look on his face and he comes back in, or if it's a key staff because you're a branch, right? I'll just be like, "Hey, just handle whatever it is," right? So you're in charge, just let me know, right? So just something like that. So I just keep that separated from this. But I don't care if this kid turning in their kit, if there's no one else here, if they have to wait 30 minutes, tough. They're not more important than my training class. So they'll just have to wait till I'm done with training. So good question on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm supposed to have you guys start role playing or if Trey's supposed to come in and tell you guys too. So we're just gonna do 2 Q&A until Trey comes in. And you can do any training Q&A. Maybe not if you don't have a personal story intro talk one. You can ask like a branch question.
For the personal story, is it still like how long is it supposed to be? Like watching Trey, it seemed like it was really, really short, so I wasn't sure.
Did you feel like mine was really long?
Longer than his, but
you're explaining
It is.
Yeah.
that's true.
It's okay for yours to be more lengthy, right? I was pausing it. You guys aren't going to talk as long as Trey, right? So like you might have your first training class. If your training class starts at 10 a.m. and ends at 5 p.m., just know your first training, right? You might somehow be like, "I don't know how the heck we're done at 3, but we're done." So that's not a thing to worry about. Like if your personal story might be a little bit too long.
And do you have yours recorded by chance? Or like your intro talk?
I guess I got recorded.
That's just good.
No, but I will record it. What else?
That's a big.
Okay, I have another question. So, and this is just something that popped up in my head earlier. A lot of us had really strong starts for our first weekends, and we probably had like a really easy first weekend. Like I know I had like a really easy first weekend. So for those kids who had an easy first weekend, what is the easiest way to like empathize with rats and help them feel like you've been in their shoes for that first weekend, but still be your personal story without just talking about other people's events?
You don't mean first week in PDI, you mean in training?
Yeah, in training. Like when you're going over your personal story and you're talking about your first weekend and you're sharing your first weekend story, if you had a great first weekend, what are some ways to connect with them and be empathetic and not make them feel bad?
Oh, like you're gonna do dumb stuff like not read the manual like I did.
Yeah.
Hey, just be like, "Hey, I listened to everything and this is what happened."
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. I just did everything my manager said. All of a sudden, I was successful. But you could say what your worries were. Like, I was worried no one would buy this from me, right? My mom's so stingy. It turned out she really liked it and she bought it. Also, if you don't have a story yourself out of the platter rep, use stories through other people. Does that make sense? And not just for training, but like for coaching kids. If a kid's in a situation you can't relate to obviously use a story of someone that has been in that situation before to be able to relate through them. Does that make sense?
Is there something that you wish you did the first time you branched that you didn't do?
A lot.
Number one thing.
I wish I rehearsed training before I did it because like I didn't actually script training. When I was in branch training, I did run a training. But when I was in branch training, they gave us a script, so now we changed it to like y'all have to script it because it makes you do it instead of just reading from the script. But I do wish I knew that like the actual training more because there were a lot of things in training that I just didn't do right just because I didn't like know the full like training. If you like say the seminar Trey, if you do the seminar Trey does, or you do the seminar Patrick or Brent or I do, like your kids will sell. So that's one thing I wish I did different. I'm trying to think of like other like big things and not have to think of like all these other little nitpicky things. I wish I did that. I wish I grinded harder for my first 4 weeks, right? You want to like sell all out your first like month. And I'm not telling you guys like, oh, whole branch do that, right? And you will get free time, you will. But like, don't give yourself an excuse to do that for your first few months. So like, make sure that you don't have any excuses, you don't have any holes in the boat, and you know that you did everything that you could, right? So the first few months are big because that's when we get all the recruiting. I also wish I hit every high school graduation because I didn't hit all the high school graduations and hand out the letters. I wish when they role played in training, I actually watched the role play because I didn't, and their demo streak sucked. And I came to Trey's office, and then we watched role play here, and I'm like, oh man, I guess I should have done that. That's a big thing. I think I like the way I talked. I overhyped a lot of things too when I branched, right? And I had an 80K branch, so it was all right, but not fantastic. I could have done a lot more, but they were like, I felt like when I was talking to kids, like I tried too hard to sound like how awesome it was instead of just sounding normal about it, right? So just be a normal person. Any update, Daniela?
Oh no, just
Okay.
I think they can practice.
We're doing like all branch Q&A right now.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big thing I wish I did different, but it's really important to script training and have it down. Your personal story, don't read from your paper because that's really weird if you're like, I'm from Titusville, Florida, and I worked at McDonald's, right? That scam, right? So make sure that you don't have to do that when you do it. You want to know your personal story with it.
That's another question. Is your first training like your first demo where you actually like read from it? Or is it
have it with you.
down?
You want to have it down so you don't need to stare at it, but have it with you. That's fine.
Yeah,
right?
but don't read.
Yeah, have it with you. Make sure you don't skip anything. Also, bullet for yourself so you have OneNotes where. Here's a good tip I say: script everything, have it down word for word. Then when you go back through, then abbreviate things and bullet point things to get them down, right? And then you can bullet point those more, right? So the more you get it, like the more abbreviated it could be. So that way, when I'm running training, I can look at something with 5 bullets, and like I could look at the 5 bullets. I know how to rip the next hour of training. Does that make sense? So like abbreviate it more and more as things go on. When I run training, I still actually like have a sticky note or a paper where I'm just gonna write out my outline for things again, just to remind myself of things, and that's okay.
I was just gonna piggyback off of that, and I don't think necessarily for you, Christina, you would need to read the whole script. I'm sure there's like people in here who are like, I'm not the best with scripts. Like I do better when I read from the script, and I do want to like build everyone's like confidence there. Where James McKinney went out to 200K summers back to back, literally in training. You can ask his reps, read it word for word the entire training, like even 2 months after being open. And he still did okay as a branch. You don't have to have the whole thing memorized if that's not like your personality. Like Joe's really, really smart, and so is Christina. So I'm sure they like didn't feel the need to read it. But if you need to read it, you can read it. It's not gonna hurt.
Yeah, listen to the training more like Trey's intro talk, Brian Hurlman's training, and Drew Frank's training are good trainings too, right? Do the one that Trey teaches you. But if it's like little things, like you're going to drive for a few hours, because I did this too over the summer and my pop went up, I would just play training in the background while I did things. Like I drove around it, like while I was like driving to Orlando or something, just have it play. You don't have to be intentional about it, but when you hear it over and over and over again in the background, you just start to know the verbiage, right? Like you could go to sleep and have it play in the background while you sleep.
Whose training did you play?
Hurlman's. Yeah.
The one from 14 to 2014.
I think that was what it was from. But yeah, if you can listen to it over and over again and know the material, because the material is really big. So that way you don't skip any of the important things, right? When it comes to popping fear bubbles or setting their expectations for their sales. Any other questions at all? I'm just gonna make you guys role play because it's getting to this point where it's like I don't know what else to do.
He'd
So.
probably be like, yo, why didn't you role play?
Just filibuster.
Okay. So how are they role playing? One-on-one sections.
They're gonna get partners. We're just gonna go around and listen to them go back and forth with each other. Which I don't know. Personally, I think that we should split up into groups and each have our own group and we kind of stop them and whatnot. It's kind of long.
Yeah. What I'll do then. Oh, in training, when it's time for your kids to role play, by the way, you want to match likes up with likes. Right, I was about to match y'all up, so but you want to match likes up with likes. So what that means is, I don't know, like if you have like your two like outgoing preppy kids, right, athletic kids, right, your frat sorority kids, like I like to match them up so there's other people here like me, right? Your kids that are like kind of quirky, like I'll match the two quirky ones up, right? I'm not gonna match someone who's like really quirky up with someone who's really like the opposite of that, you know, because I don't want them to feel, I want them to feel like there's a lot of people who are like them, right? So just a random note with that. But for y'all, just go ahead and I guess just swing around to the person that's next to you is what I would do for you guys, right? And then like Kyle and CJ, and then I guess boom, you and Issa, then you two. And then, yeah, that's an odd amount. Skylar? Yeah, swing on over here. Yeah, but then that makes Crystal not already not. Just swing around with the rest of the guard.
All right. Forward up with you guys.
I didn't have my phone.
Oh, Kyle,
Yeah, that was the first page. I didn't know like.
yeah. The hair chick, bro. Yeah. I didn't even say it.
I should start doing the forward.
Yeah, you should start. Yeah, you can't use five fingers yet. You don't got it yet. Hey, at least I know you're asleep.
What else? And you just write the environment.
You made
I
me
know.
Jenna, where's that Wi-Fi password?
Vector with a capital V123.
No, I think it's good. Yeah, what am I going to
And the computers. Really cool.
No, I cool.
I got 1 hour.
Well, no, like if someone had, no. I mean, like if someone had to be there to be answered, yes. I would like
Yeah, I don't do that either.
But if you got your hair like super short, you'd be like, this thing.
All right, start role play.
So
tired.
Good.